Serious? People who had an affair that ended without you being found out? What happened? How do you feel about your ex affair partner now? Mine is a gender flip of a very common story. I was 19 when we met. She was 32. We worked in the same field but not the same office. I felt drawn to her the first time I saw her, and the first time we talked she blushed all the way up to her hairline. She'd been married 12 years at that point. 2 years pass and we start having an affair. I was desperately in love, and no one ever suspected a thing. I was so much younger. She was so prim and proper. I went on family vacations with them. She kept saying she would get divorced and then we would be together. She dumped me a month after the divorce was final. We'd been together, if you can call it that, for 4 years. It was one of the best breakups I've ever had. She threw me a going away party. When she ended it I decided to move away, and after everyone left we fricked and it was awesome. We both knew it was the last time. I've never had that before or since. I still love her. Consider her one of the great loves of my life. We talk occasionally. I was the other man. I was frisky, lonely, and wanted my ex-fiancée back. I came home for Christmas and by this time, she and I had been broken up for 3 or 4 months, but she still wanted to be friends, and I did not. She convinced me we needed to at least talk about what was going on between us and get some closure. So I went over to her apartment and we sat and talked for a solid 2 hours, during which I found out she was engaged. Ideas start forming in my head that I might get laid. She goes on to say how he works rotations, only home 2 weeks at a time, doesn't call her often, and even when he's home he spends more time on WoW than with her. So 30 minutes later we were screwing. I also came back that New Year's Eve to frick some more. She ended up breaking things off with that guy so we could restart a tentative long distance relationship. But as for him personally, I have no idea how much he was told. A month and a half later she and I had broken up again. And 2 weeks after that she was engaged again to a third guy. The only thing I regret was skipping a killer New Year's party to sleep with her. TLDNR. No matter how lonely you are or how good in bed she is, do not get back in bed with your ex. Especially if she was willing to cheat with you. If she cheats with you, she'll cheat on you. I did it because I was young and in an unhappy relationship with zero self-esteem and no spine. I felt old and unlovable. Every attempt at leaving ended in my self-esteem being put through the wood chipper. The person I cheated with was an acquaintance who made me feel good about myself. We became good friends and that friendship gave me confidence. I wasn't used to someone listening to me without judgment or belittling me. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little infatuated. It was the first positive attention I had gotten in years, but I never acted on it. My then partner disliked this person and got very jealous. I stopped hanging around them but we still messaged. My partner began telling all our friends they thought I was cheating and started playing the poor cuckolded victim. Alienated me and assassinated my character so I'd feel worthless, unloved, and dependent again. It got to the point where everyone was already saying I was screwing this person and treating me like crap over it, so why not? It was a move made out of spite and desperation. I regret using this person like that, but I'm pretty positive they knew what was happening. Looking back now, they knew the position I was in and was either offering me comfort or way out, or maybe just simply taking advantage. I don't talk to either now. The affair gave me the confidence to leave my then partner. I quickly realized the nature of the relationship with the affair partner wasn't healthy either, not to mention the guilt, so I ended that rather harshly. I regret how it all went down. It wasn't a proud moment, but it happened. I just remind myself to learn from it and never let myself get into that position again. Throwaway. A few years ago I was spending time with somebody quite regularly that had a long distance boyfriend. We began to hang out a lot, more than friends should. She told me all the things I wanted to hear, how he was an insensitive douchebag, and that how I treated her so well in comparison. I told her that if she kept hanging out with me that things will start to get serious, that I was a guy, and when you spend a lot of time one-on-one with a guy, there's a good chance he'll make a move. I dropped a hint pretty hard. She didn't listen. Eventually I made a move, and she reciprocated, and we started physically seeing each other regularly. Her boyfriend became suspicious, but he never really knew. When I expressed that I had real feelings, she got confused and basically couldn't decide whether or not to leave the guy and go with me. Fast forward the clock 4 years later and they are married and she never brought it up to him even once. I met him once during a social function and he had no clue who I was and I felt like crap. He was not the douchebag that she described him as, and I realized that the only person that really got played there was me. I really feel sorry for the guy, because he is married to a dishonest B. Went back to AA after a brutal relapse and ran into a guy I'd known vaguely as a teenager. Was an emotional wreck and he had been sober over a decade, owned property, seemed to have his crap together. He told me he'd keep me safe from all the lecherous 13-steppers. I was still high and believed him. Got sober. We texted constantly about anything and everything. He came over and said he shouldn't go near me because I was a newcomer, then immediately jumped on me. He asked to shower after, and the next day admitted he was engaged. I was horrified but lacked the self-respect to put an end to it. No excuses. My behavior was wrong. It continued for months while he told me he was being railroaded by the girl and his family but was going to cut things off. He loved me. He'd never loved anyone like he loved me. I start to find self-worth outside of him and cut it off. Start seeing someone else. He flips the frick out and supposedly checks into a mental institution. Shows up at my work and begs me for another chance. He tells me the wedding is off and she has moved out. He wants to be with me forever and have kids with me. Only nobody can know we're together because he doesn't want me to look like a homewrecker and his public job requires that nobody know details about his personal life. We have amazing weekends away and pretend we barely know each other in front of everyone we know. Ex drunkenly calls him repeatedly and while I'm there laying in bed with him he tells her no, we're not together. Also he doesn't ever kiss me and says it's not his thing. It gets old. I hear rumors about him and other women and have no reason to trust him. I break it off after a year and he goes on a vendetta against me and the next person I date, but nobody takes him seriously. Last time I saw him he tried to kiss me in front of a woman who recently ran for president to prove he really loved me. I'm still with that next guy, who is amazing. And last I heard the dude found another newcomer and they are madly in love, as evidenced by now permitted social media selfies. Everyone deserves to be happy and is capable of change, so I hope it's true. I'd be really surprised if so, though. TLDR. Don't be the side chick. Everyone involved deserves better. Also don't crap where you eat, and steer clear of politics. Last time I saw him he tried to kiss me in front of a woman who recently ran for president to prove he really loved me, and steer clear of politics. You can't just not elaborate on these parts. I won't allow it. For this story, I was not the cheater. I hope that doesn't ruin the story for whoever is reading this. I was working at a restaurant this summer at a beachside resort. There were a ton of workers from all over Europe and the Middle East. One day a new boozer was hired, and she was the girl of my dreams with red hair and deep brown eyes, and although she barely spoke English, we started talking. I took every chance I could to speak with her. She had a calming presence whenever I was around her. I'm not very good about asking girls on dates. One day I was talking to her about a church that would feed the foreign workers for free and apparently the food was pretty good. She offered to take me there, but she didn't have any free time until the next week since she was working 2 jobs. I happily accepted the offer and I was walking on cloud 9 for the rest of the week. The day of the date came, and we decided that we should go to the beach instead of the church, which was nice because going to a church on a first date is a little strange. For some reason she was insistent on going to a secluded part of the beach. She didn't tell me why. Anyways, it was pretty nice. I got to know some more about her and see her in a bikini. We had a good time at the beach until a storm started to brew on the horizon. We made a quick escape to a diner on the boardwalk. After we ordered, she looked at me with a pained expression and said, "I have something I have to tell you. I have a fiance." As she said this, the skies opened up and a torrential downpour started. She confessed to me that she had invited me to the date because after dating this other guy for so long he had begun to neglect her, and since they had come to America, he even hit her a few times. She was far from home in a country where she barely spoke the language. She was scared and lonely. She just wanted to feel wanted and loved again. Obviously I felt very conflicted about this. I paid for the meal, against her protestations, and I walked her back as far as she would let me to her house. I asked her on another date, where it also rained, but we had our first kiss after watching The Exorcism. Things kind of escalated from there. Her fiance never found out, but at the end of the summer she needed to go home and I needed to go back to college. I miss her every day and think about her. I think I love her. She's coming back this summer, but I won't be there. The first time I hung out with my girlfriend, we watched The Exorcism. It was also our first time together. This doesn't add to your story, but the coincidence is kinda cool. He ended up divorcing his wife. Not for me. He went on to have a few relationships that were awful and unhealthy, like his marriage was. He has a lot of issues he needs to work out before he can have a happy and successful relationship. We still talk from time to time, but I don't have any desire to have a relationship with him. Cheated once on a serious boyfriend during a period of very poor mental health. Kept it in for a couple months. Felt very unwell and confessed. He was upset. We took some space to think. He forgave me, but we broke up anyway because it was just time. I went to therapy, tried to turn my life around, did a semi-okay job. We still lightly touch base with one another once every blue moon. He's engaged and I'm glad. I would rate the entire ordeal a 1/10. The 1 point is because I gained some life experience. I was cheated on once. It sucked and I swore I'd never do it. Then I hooked up with a new friend of mine because my boyfriend is a jerk. She didn't end up telling him and I feel so terrible about it. I probably would have felt better if I had been the one cheated on. Mine was with a co-worker. We were both married. I'd say it started when we went on a work trip together and just got along really well. The last night of the trip we laid in the hotel bed together talking, but nothing else happened. We eventually started talking and texting a lot after that. Like going an hour without some kind of exchange was unusual. We only got physical a handful of times because finding time and privacy for that was obviously difficult. But we'd sneak into an office closet or wait for everyone to leave for the day for quick kisses when we could. She ended up moving across the country with her husband, but we still talked. Phone calls when we could. Texting all day otherwise. I'd take the long way home to talk on the phone longer and she would call anytime she had the privacy and time. Then I found out my job wanted me to move to the same place and I was ecstatic. But about a month after I told her, she became distant until I finally asked what was up. She wanted to break it off and I was crushed. She divorced her husband and now me and her work in the same building. I still care about her and it hurts knowing she doesn't feel the same way and that I have no one to talk to about it because of the secrecy. Well, my so was an understandably cold and distant person after something which happened way before I came along, and that meant that physical contact was a minimum. I was perfectly fine with that and was not about to push her into doing anything, but whenever she did feel alright for me to touch her, it wouldn't get very far, and after a few months of this I started to feel a bit pent up. I simply tried doing away with it solo, but something always seemed to be missing. Now my best friend, a girl with her own so, and I are very liberal when we speak, almost having no boundaries on what's taboo and what isn't, so I spoke to her about my issue. She suggested that perhaps she could help me with that. I wasn't sure what she meant until it became very clear what she meant. Needless to say, in the spirit of good friendship, I let her help me out, and in turn I was helping her since her so was being a little neglectful in that area. This went on for a while until I felt incredibly guilty about the whole thing, and told her that we should stop. She respected my decision and it ended there. As to how I feel about this, my so is gone and already seeing someone else, so I'm not really feeling all too bad about it. We weren't clicking quite right in the end. I'm the third wheel in this story. My story starts in 2005 with a younger friend. She and I have a brief fling. Nothing happens of it, we remain friends. I'll call her Sue. 2009, Sue gets into a serious relationship and gets engaged to a guy, who I'll call Mick. Mick becomes emotionally abusive, but it is slow onset. Sue and Mick live together far from Sue's friends. 2011 crap gets worse and I can see something is badly wrong. Sue is back locally, but intends to permanently move to Mick's home area. I make the decision to break up Sue and Mick by any means possible. To start with, I'm just there for her. When Sue tries to seduce me, I'm right on board, seeing it as a way to split them up. It works. A short time later they split, and seeing my work here is being done, I fade somewhat from the scene. Sue quickly meets someone else, I'll call him Dave, and they are together to this day. Sue and I remain fairly distant friends. We shall call this play The Good Samaritan. Old high school crush. We drank too much one night. She said she liked me, I said I liked her. Fricked, that was it. 10 years of tension released and dealt with. Feel bad to her point. When I was trapped in an abusive relationship with my ex, I began to look to others to give me comfort and love. I found it in one of the ex's friends. I gathered the courage to leave my ex a year after the friend and I started dating. That friend and I are still together after 2 years and we're making plans to marry. I was seriously mentally unwell and a fuckhead decided to take advantage of that. I'm still an adult and I take responsibility for what I did though. Only slept with him once. Confessed to my so very quickly. We'd been together a year. Even he admits to this day that he's pretty sure I was more distraught than him. And he was upset. I was in hysterics. Couldn't believe what I had done. I got more instance therapy and was WTH that so for a year after that. We broke up for other reasons but I'm so happy he forgave me and we worked through it. I didn't deserve his forgiveness, but he gave it to me and I did everything I could to earn his trust back. We're still good friends today. I did an awful, selfish thing, but I'm glad I took the time to let my then partner heal and did all I could to make up for it. Confessed, divorced, married my mistress. Honestly life is good. Alimony sucked, but that's done. Can't complain. Got tired of begging for it so I found a woman who was in the same boat. The affair has gone on for 18 years. Both still married and happy. I had 4 affairs. They weren't found out. I eventually realized that I was the problem and confessed. I fully expected to told it was time for a divorce, but I got forgiven instead, and it was one of the most powerful emotions of grace I've ever experienced. I still love my spouse. The Paramers are still friends, but we aren't in touch often. For me, the main thing was realizing that, no matter how much I thought I was a good partner in the marriage, I could still screw up. It isn't a black-white issue. Maintaining contact, however slim, with someone you cheated on your spouse with is a really, really bad idea, especially when you're so gracious, seems downright rude in comparison. I was actually the other woman for about a year and a half. Started off as pretty much best friends and slowly progressing until one day we just started ripping each other's clothes off. I knew about his girlfriend the entire time. I helped him cover up what we were doing more than once. Her and I were never really friends, but we graduated together and played a few sports together. After a while, as to be expected, I fell for him and told him that he either had to choose her or me. He dumped her and we slept together for probably 6 more months before I finally decided that he was never gonna commit. Right around the same time he got back together with her and now he and I hate each other because things ended on a terrible note. Thought about divulging the entire thing to her, but she would blame everything on me and stay with him. This happened all at least over 2 years ago and I've just recently realized that the two of them truly deserve each other. I never really kept any of it a secret, and I would flat out tell anybody who actually asked, so I'm surprised she hasn't really found out about it. I don't really feel guilty, which I know is terrible, but I just can't find it within me to feel bad. It's not really any excuse, but his girlfriend really truly is terrible, so maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, you don't exactly sound like such a winner yourself. This was the best and worst time of my life. I'm glad it happened. It made me wake up and realize that I was a full-on alcoholic. Regardless, I met her at a staff function 5 years ago. She was a new hire and I was a senior writer. We laughed, had a few drinks and that was that. No flirting mind you. But over the months, it escalated until finally she texts me back saying, "God, I just want you inside me." This was at an anniversary dinner with my then girlfriend, with all our friends around. It was so exciting. After that, we would regularly frick in the toilets at work. She was about to get married and already had a kid, but it did not matter. We also fell madly in love, but then one day, her boyfriend confirms a wedding date, and she simply ended it. We had a pity frick or two after that, but it was over. Over time, she ghosted me at work, and I became an enormous alcoholic. Drinking replaced eating. Until one day, when I saw her in a bar and started screaming at her, and she just told me to frick off, and that she never loved me. After that, I became a functioning alcoholic for a full year, and eventually migrated to weed as well. I was an absolute mess, until 3 years ago when I met my now fiance, who helped me to sort out the mess of my life. Everything is now roses, but I'll never forget the woman I cheated with. Sometimes I see her profile pop up on LinkedIn and my heart sinks. My story is complicated. When my hubs and I got married, I was very young. I had a male best friend. My hubs was not happy with it. My relationship with my best friend got to the point where we ended up loving each other romantically. My hubs found out and I confessed everything to him and promised to not talk to him anymore. Only thing we did was kiss each other. My relationship with my hubs continues with no issues on my part. We have 2 kids and things seem good. All these years passed and my hubs brings up this guy all the time to make me feel like crap. Even brings up the guy to my family so my family can make me feel like crap. All these years and it seems like we can never get along and we always have arguments. Finally, Hubs confesses to me that the reason he feels like our relationship has issues is because he had a huge sin he has to confess to me. He tells me that he had an affair with a coworker. Not only was this an emotional affair, but it was a physical affair. I'm confused cause he's always made me feel horrible about my past affair. He would talk about this lady all the time, but I never suspected anything cause he's really religious. I even met this lady he had an affair with. I feel like he manipulated my life for all these years. He told me he never intended to leave me for this other woman. Even now he wants us to work things out. I know, I'm no saint, but I wish he would have told me sooner rather than later. It was my first relationship and only lasted about 5 months. It was doomed to fail from the get-go. I only considered it a relationship because he wanted the titles. I didn't. I had a panic attack once it went on Facebook and had to take it down. Toward the end it was particularly bad. He was too busy for me. I was getting fed up with him. I ended up hanging out with a friend of mine, who also happened to be a guy I already had feelings for. He was my middle school crush and I guess I never really got over it because of other crap that happened that made closure really difficult. Well anyway, he ended up staying at my house for a few days because of issues at home. This was also during me having serious doubts about my relationship and resolving to break it off. Well, the same day I made my decision, my friend kisses me and I kissed back. This lasted 2 days till I felt too guilty to continue until I broke up with my BF at the time. So, because communication didn't exist in my relationship and I only saw the kid once a week at most, I broke up with him a week later. I felt guilty, but he never found out as far as I know. My affair partner and I are getting married in August. About a month after we started talking, not fricking, we both told our current spouses we wanted a divorce. Best decision I ever made. I've never been happier. Well, I cheated in a happy, long-term relationship. Basically, the girl I was dating was kind of a B to me when we first met. I was attracted to her right off the bat, but she acted aloof to my advances. However, we were vaguely in the same group of friends, so we did end up interacting more and eventually started dating and it got serious. But I never really got over her cold and aloof attitude towards me in the beginning. So as happy and fulfilled as our relationship became, I saw it as okay to cheat. You might call that petty, but it is what it is. When the opportunity presented itself, I was happy to take it. The affair itself lasted about 3 months. It was with one of her sister's friends, who I met at her house. She was cute. I liked her. There was definitely a flirtatious aspect to our conversations and we talked a lot about TV shows we liked and I told her she can come over to my house to hang out. She took me up on the offer, which is when we hooked up for the first time. Eventually we got bored of fricking each other and just stopped meeting. I don't really think much of her. We're on good terms, hardly see each other anymore. Some time after that I also cheated with a girl from my uni, but that happened just once. Me and my girlfriend of the time eventually broke up for unrelated reasons. I was the other guy, went in just wanting to be friends with this girl. We hung out and she made a bunch of moves on the first day we hung out. Me, having just gotten out of a bad relationship, relented. Turns out she had a boyfriend, but even after she told me, we continued. Had me wrapped around her finger. She did about 4-5 months and she started feeling guilty and basically dumped me, but still wanted to hang out and smoke my weed. I'm still friends with her, but it stung a lot. I understand the relationship we had wasn't necessarily right, but I cared for her a lot and it hurt to lose her. I cheated constantly on one of my ex-girlfriends. Turns out, she, not knowing of my infidelity, cheated herself. Once I knew that, I realized I'm not even angry with her, and more with my stupidity. We opened our relationship, and I remained poly since then. Crazy story here. Was 20. She was 29. Married. We met on an online forum. I was extremely shy and without any self-confidence. Posted a picture of me in a show us your face thread and she was nice to me. Sometimes later, we were exchanging, phoning, and planning to see each other. At the time it was like 15 hours a day of chat, including 3 or 4 hours on the phone. I started to miss school, etc. She was very attractive and I figured it was unreal. Things turned to become very hot, but also exhausting. She kept saying she would divorce, meet me, etc. For months. We found an arrangement. As I was going to work abroad, she would meet me there. I don't know how I managed to believe that she would do it, coming alone to someone she never saw in real life, but I deeply believed it. I was crazily in love. I moved abroad, worked, found a very nice apartment, and waited for her. I waited weeks, then realized nothing would happen. She had become distant, etc. She kept telling me her husband was out of the way, living in separate house, planning for divorce, etc. One day she calls me and say it was over, without a reason apart of I will ruin your life if we continue. I was so lost at the time. She disappeared, then came back, saying she loved me more than anyone, etc. Then went away again. Some months later I went back to our country to finish studying. I will remember a specific day all my life. I had an important exam at 2 p.m. At 12 she called me, telling me she was pregnant. This felt like the end of the world. I fell into a deep depression that took years to overcome. She became angry at me, started to talk bad to me, being really mean, probably to push me away. I did some research on her. I realized she lied to me about so much things. She kept coming on the forum where we met and I was seeing her posting like she did not even know me. Some months later, a guy emailed me. He was a guy from this forum. He had a similar story. He did some research on her and I realized she lied about really a lot of things. I never talked to anyone close about all the details. I ended up calling lifelines. Don't know if this is the word, but phone numbers with people answering and listening, etc. The worst thing is, sometimes, I still miss her, the moments we had. It was a crazy period of my life. Been having an affair with someone for just about 2 years now. She's been married throughout, and I have cheated on one partner with her. It's about to end, but she doesn't know. I've met somebody great, and I am not going to allow my feelings for my affair partner to get in the way. That happened with an ex who was also pretty great, and sabotaged the relationship. I'm not looking forward to it, but it has to be done. I want to have a real relationship for once without someone else in the way. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.